Hi, I'm Davy. I'm awesome. And welcome to Davy's Awesome Movies, where I review the styles of movies that I love, the alternative B-rated cult-style flicks. And not only is this one an alternative film, not only is it a cult flick, this is one of my favorite movies from my childhood that got lost for a long time. This movie came out in 1988, and it was written, directed, and produced by Frank LaLoggia, and produced by Andrew G. LaMarca. Made by New Sky Productions, and distributed by New Century Vista Film Company and MGM. Ladies and gentlemen, the awesome cult classic, Lady in White. The movie opens with a famous book writer taking a trip to his hometown where he grew up. But before he gets to his childhood home, he wants to stop at a cemetery.
You know?
This actor is not credited, but the actor itself is actually the writer, director, producer, Frank LaLoggia. Then we travel to Halloween 1962. And we know it's Halloween because we're surrounded by that god-awful candy corn. I don't care what you say, that stuff's terrible. Then we see our lead, Frankie.
Frankie, where are you going?
To school.
That mask was supposed to make him look like Dracula, the Bela Lugosi Dracula. But most people watching this, including myself, originally thought that for some reason he was supposed to be Richard Nixon. As Frankie and his older brother Gino are riding their bikes to school, Gino decides to speed up, pull over, and hide so that he can do this. He scares his little brother, who now falls into a bunch of wet cement. As a younger brother myself, I can confirm that older brothers suck.
Are you hurt? What's that look like? Ketchup?
I mean, it might be. It's low budget. Who knows what they used for fake blood? But now Gino is pleading with Frankie.
I won't tell, Dad.
I mean, two flaws in this logic. First of all, as the little brother, we are always gonna tell. We can't wait to tell. You torture us, and the second you do something that gives us an opportunity to tell, oh goodness Lord, we tell! Also, even if he doesn't tell, I think your dad's gonna notice all the wet cement on your clothes and bike. After school, all the kids are getting their coats and getting ready to go home, but one kid who's jealous of Frankie, Donald, swipes his cap.
Now we'll see how brave Frankie really is.
Oh no, Donald's gone overboard? I don't give a crap if you get it. The reason Donald is jealous is because during class, Frankie got up and read a Halloween story he wrote that everybody liked, including this girl.
I wish I was as weird as you.
I think your wish came true. Later, outside, Frankie realizes that his cap that his father bought him is gone.
It probably fell out in the cloakroom. How much you want to bet?
Then Donald starts picking on Frankie for liking a little black girl. Keep in mind, this was 1962. That would have been something they would have made fun of you about. And something that people would have been insulted by, even if they really did like the girl. Now it's like, oh, you like a black girl, and it's like, yeah?
And pale.
Frankie's lucky he didn't break his hand hitting him like that.
I'm gonna get my cap.
Well, good for you. But while Frankie is in the cloakroom looking for his cap, Donald sucks. Frankie is in there so long that he falls asleep. And he starts dreaming about his dead mother, her funeral, and happy memories. And even with the happy memories, he wakes up crying. Which gives us the impression that his mother died not that long ago. And of course, he's a little kid. It's tough on him. It's tough on everybody, buddy. However, this is the 60s, so whereas his dad is really nice in this movie, I feel like his dad would probably be more like, buck up. Just then, as Frankie is drying his tears, he sees a ghost.
Have you ever seen a dream walking?
A ghost who died needing singing lessons. Even more disturbing is the ghost starts acting out the moment that she died. Although there's nobody else there, giving us the impression that her killer is still alive. Basically an adult that she trusted and suddenly turned violent. And again, this was 1962. Kids pretty much trusted every adult. We've learned. After the ghost leaves, Exactly how has that kid not peed himself yet? This man comes in and starts messing with a vent on the floor until he hears and notices Frankie. And he starts choking Frankie in his Dracula Nixon mask. Chokes him until the point that Frankie passes out and has an out-of-body experience. His out-of-body experience takes him everywhere. He sees his dad frantically looking for him and trying to find him, calling everybody. He sees his brother mourning him, giving us the impression time has passed and he has died. He even sees the kids who played the prank on him in the first place standing at his gravestone. But then Frankie looks over and sees the little girl who introduces herself. She is Melissa, and she's asking for Frankie's help.
My mommy's lost and I can't find her.
Well, Frankie can't help you, Melissa. He's a little bit dead. At least until... He's alive! While they were reviving Frankie, the police were searching the school, looking for any adult who may have done this. And unfortunately, the janitor was there after hours drinking. So he's going to be their suspect. The next morning, Frankie is awake. He's recovering. His father comes in and does ask him, though, did he see the man that did this to him?
He was too dark. I couldn't see his face.
And to be fair, the guy who was strangling me thought I was Nixon, who didn't want to strangle him. Then Gino comes in all excited, showing Frankie that this incident made the newspapers. And I get back then, newspapers were a big deal, and being in a newspaper was a big deal. It'd be like being on TV now, but that's really not something to be excited about. I'm excited because I won a competition at the state fair. I'm excited because I did a heroic act. I'm excited because I got choked.
It's all there. Whole story. 11 kids molested and killed in the past 10 years.
Okay, I guess it's a little exciting that you weren't number 12. Gino even mentions that of the 11 children that have been killed, only 2 were from the town they live in. The rest were from the big city. One of them Gino knew personally. He went to 6th grade with him. His name was Richie. But it just so happens that the very first victim was the little girl that Frankie saw, Melissa. And now they are going to be pinning all 11 murders on this janitor. Then we see 2 men come in, Tony and Phil. They are like uncles to Frankie, as they are his father Angelo's 2 best friends since childhood. They're there to give Frankie a present. But then they go outside and they're talking to Angelo, and Angelo is uneasy. He just is not convinced that the person who tried to kill his son was this guy, Harold, the janitor.
Oh, God!
It's not that Harold.
Why would he do it? He's got children of his own.
This was 1962 logic. They just really had these ideas that it couldn't possibly be some kind of good, upstanding family man that would do these horrific things. And I get the logic, but saying that he had children, so did BTK. Angelo is still worried about his son, though.
He's gonna be all right. He's tough. He's a fighter.
Phil there is not only Angelo's best friend, but they are like brothers. They go into the story of how Phil basically grew up with Angelo. After Phil's parents died, Angelo's parents took him in.
If it hadn't been for your mother and father, I don't know what I would have done. The thing that scares me the most is the thought of losing one of my kids.
Well, that scares all of us, man. Especially now that your wife is gone. I fear losing my wife. Especially because it scares me thinking how, if I lost my wife, my kids would go up for adoption. A few days pass, everybody is at church, and the priest is going on about Frankie and giving thanks that he is alive and well.
Why did our Richie have to die?
That's Agnes, the mother of the boy that went to school with Gino that was one of the victims. Even though it was a long time ago, she's still very hurt and distraught over her son being taken from her. And I think she's also hurt and distraught that her name is Agnes.
That murder of hers that killed him.
Okay, Agnes, I get that you're grieving. I get it. I don't think I'd ever get over this kind of thing either, but this really is not the place for this. Harold's wife faints, and oddly enough, the only person that actually gets up to go over and help her is Angelo. The one person you would think would be a little iffy about that. But again, this is to show us that not only is he a very compassionate man, but he's still very much not convinced that it was the janitor. Some time passes. It's now the Christmas season. And Frankie is awakened in the middle of the night by the record playing of the song the little girl was singing.
Help me find her.
Still looking for her mother. Being very creepy about it. Why do ghosts always have to be creepy about things? Can't they ever just be like, hey dude, wake up. Still need to find my mom. And then we see Angelo talking to the sheriff, telling him that he just really doesn't think Harold the janitor did this. But the sheriff is making it clear he does not care, because this case of these children has been plaguing his police department for 10 years.
Harold Williams is a perfect scapegoat. He's black.
Remember, this was 1962, so this was kind of accurate. In fact, this movie is actually dating right as the civil rights movement was about to get started. They show newspaper clips and news stories where it shows that things are really starting to happen. Certain segregation laws are being taken away. But the truth is back in the 60s, if they had a crime they were pressured to solve and they could pin it on a black guy, absolutely they would. Frankie is outside talking to Phil, not only about Melissa, the ghost he's been seeing, but also tells him that he went back to the cloakroom, opened that vent himself, and found some stuff in there. Mostly kids' stuff, except for a ring that clearly belonged to an adult.
They were putting in the new furnace.
Which explains what the killer was doing there that night. He knew there was evidence there and didn't want it found. But later, Gino is in his and Frankie's room, and he finds that very ring. Later, the boys that messed with Frankie in the first place, Donald and Louie, and Frankie, decide to go to the house of the mythical Lady in White. The myth says that she roams the cliffs at night looking for her long-lost daughter, answering the question of who Melissa's mother is, but not answering the question of why would you hang out with these two? As they are looking around, Frankie notices that the Lady in White is the mother of Melissa. Elsewhere in the house, Donna and Louie see a Lady in White, freak out, and run out, leaving Frankie all by himself. Frankie, get better friends. But eventually Frankie sees her too, so he runs out. This lady showed him who's the boss. She's played by Katherine Hellman. Mona from Who's the Boss. She was also in Overboard, like Donald. But as Frankie is running through the woods, he runs into Gino, who is sent to go find him. But Gino, being the older brother, douche, decides to scare him. On behalf of little brothers everywhere. Bravo. Frankie then starts telling Gino all about the Lady in White and Melissa and the ring he found. And even though Gino did find this ring and it's starting to click with him, he's dismissive and just says, let's go home. But realizing that this is a class ring, this gets Gino thinking. And he decides to compare this class ring with his father's class ring. They are identical, which means whoever this is went to high school with his father. The plot thickens. Even more thickens. Like, seriously, at this point, I think we all know who it is, and it's thick. Thicker than a milkshake. When Gino gets back to his room... Ow! If Gino wasn't convinced, he definitely is now. Now it is 10 o'clock, so Melissa leaves to go relive her death. That would suck. But this time, Gino and Frankie follow her. Once they get to the school, though, the cloakroom thing has happened. She's being carried out of the school. And Frankie figures out that they must be going to the cliffs, so he follows.
Toad, wait!
Alone. And at the cliff, he sees that Melissa did not die in the cloakroom. She died there. Not only that, though, but Frankie sees the Lady in White running out of the house, running to the cliff, seeing her daughter at the bottom. So that's the story of Melissa and her mother, Anne. Tortured souls reliving their deaths every night. The next day, Harold has been released. The jury has found him innocent on the grounds of insufficient evidence. Outside the courtroom, there's people that are happy about this. There are people that are angry about this. Agnes is also there, And she goes and knocks on the window of the car that Harold is being escorted in to apologize.
That's for my Richie.
Okay, a little bit of spoiler here. Harold is not the killer. And I really, really am disappointed that in this movie, we don't see Agnes's reaction when she finds out that he's not the killer. That was a little bit of drop of the ball there. That would have been nice to see. But ultimately, there is a moral here. When your shift is over, go home. Elsewhere, we see that Phil had taken Frankie out. They went to practice some archery with his new bow. But as they're packing up the car to go home...
What I do?
Frankie picked up on that. Frankie knows. Philip knows Frankie knows. As a kid, I didn't know. As an adult, I can't believe I didn't know. You know? Frankie has no choice but to run off. And Phil chases after him. And when he catches up to him, and Phil is begging and pleading with Frankie, he didn't know it was Frankie in the cloakroom.
If I'd known it was you, I never would have come.
Well, yeah, that should make Frankie feel so much better. Frankie, I only want to kill children that aren't you. Comparing the engravings on the class rings, Gino has also figured out it's Phil. Back to Phil, Frankie has run off again, but this time Phil has not only caught up to him, but caught him.
Give me the ring!
It's the lady in white! Frankie passes out, but when he comes to, he wakes up and he is surrounded by candles. You know, because women and their friggin' candles. We find out that's not the lady in white. The lady in white is Melissa's mother, Anne. This is Amanda, Anne's sister, Melissa's aunt, who we have found out basically lost it when she lost her niece and sister. Ended up trying to kill herself, ended up in a mental institution, and has just been living a miserable life ever since. Amanda assures Frankie he's safe because she killed Phil. Crazy lady should have done a double tap. While she is being strangled and they're struggling with that, she's knocking over a bunch of candles and the entire place goes up in flame. The moral of this story, pay the electric bill. After Phil has finished killing Amanda, he picks up Frankie and takes him outside to the cliff. He's going to throw him off. Although if all you wanted was Frankie to be dead, why wouldn't you just leave him in the burning house? Frankie is holding on for dear life. Just then, the actual lady in white appears. I mean, her sister couldn't do that. And now Melissa and her mom Anne can finally be at peace. They have been reunited in death. But it's not over. Angelo shows up with the police to get Frankie. But now... But it's okay. But now to Phil, who is about to fall.
Take it!
Dude, I get he's your best friend, like a brother. I have a friend like that, and if you're watching, let me make one thing clear to you. As much as I love you, as much as we're like brothers, very tight, if you ever try to kill one of my sons, our friendship's over.
Billy, no! Billy!
Billy, yes! But now, mother and daughter are reunited, evil is punished, and it's snowing. So there you have it. That's one of my favorite movies from my childhood, and honestly, one of my favorite movies ever. Lady in White. This is a fantastic movie, a fantastic story told. Sadly, it didn't initially do too well. It was low budget with $4.7 million, and only did about $1.7 million in the box office. Mostly because it was not played at theaters all over the country. I don't remember ever seeing a trailer for it or nothing. Basically, this movie's success came mostly from when it was released on VHS and on TV, which is actually where I saw it the first time, was on television. And honestly, I'm glad I was able to get on television, or I probably never would have seen it, as it was originally given an R rating, but they appealed that, and it was brought down to PG-13, so they were able to play it on television, which good. I don't see why it got an R rating in the first place. It wasn't a ton of bad language, except for that one scene of does this look like ketchup? There was no blood. Basically, it was a horror movie that could scare people, have that element in there, but didn't need any blood and gore. Didn't have to go there. It went there with the story. Even though it didn't have a great box office, it got really good reviews and very quickly developed a cult following. Like I said, didn't do a great box office, but very quickly made its money back when it went on VHS and later DVD. To this day, the DVD sales are pretty good. And how the writer, director, producer got the money for this film is genius. He decided to sell shares of this through penny stock at 10 cents a share. 4,000 investors later, they have the $4.7 million to make the movie. And everybody got their money back and then some. So, you know what? I'm glad he hustled because great movie. In fact, the genius behind this was Frank LaLoggia basing this movie on an actual urban legend from his hometown of the Lady in White. The legend is very similar to the story, not quite the same, but basically the premise, people saying they've seen the ghost of a lady in white who searches the countryside for her lost daughter. Which is one thing I loved about this movie. The intriguing thing was it felt like an urban myth coming to life. Like, we've all heard them. We've all grown up and heard urban myths about people in our town or towns nearby, whatever. And this was just that. And that's what was intriguing. That's what grabbed you. That's what brought you in. Not only is this one of my favorite movies, though, but like I talked about in the beginning of this movie, this was a lost movie for a long time. I had seen it on television. It played regularly. And I watched it almost every time I could find it. However, once it was off television, I didn't see it for over 20 years. Because as a kid, I could not remember the name of it. In fact, I think only once while it was playing on television did I actually catch it at the beginning. Because again, kids, this is before streaming services. If there was a movie on television, you had to get there before it started. And I would usually just be flipping channels and go like, oh, that movie's on again. It wasn't actually until a couple of years ago, I was looking around Tubi of all places, saw a thing that said Lady in White, was looking at the description, and it came to me, I was like, is that movie I've been looking for? Is that movie? The movie with the lady looking for her daughter, is that it? So I pressed play, and it took a little bit, because like I said, I'd only seen the very beginning, maybe once or twice when I was a kid. But as soon as Frankie showed up, little kid Frankie, I was like, it's that movie. This is it. Finally, found it. And I've watched it many times since, because it's such a great movie. I've even watched it with my wife and a couple of my kids, and they love it too. Not only is this one of my favorite movies, but it's the kind of movies that I love the most. A movie that is not relying on pretty fancy effects or a lot of blood or anything like that. It is relying simply on its ability to tell a very intriguing, captivating story. A story that hooks you in and you can't look away because you can't miss anything. And honestly, in my opinion, it's a lost art, because nowadays I watch a lot of movies, and that seems to be my problem with them, is that a lot of them are all sizzle, no steak. Whereas, okay, maybe this movie would have done a little bit better if they could have afforded a little bit more sizzle. The steak was good enough. I really kind of wish that modern movie makers would watch movies like this again, and remember, it's about the story, not the pretty effects. Like I said, I love this movie, so on that note, I highly, highly recommend, if you have not seen The Lady in White, go out, find it, and watch Lady in White. It is such a fantastic movie. So there you have it. That's my movie review this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notifications when I post videos, and leave a comment. If you've seen Lady in White, tell me what you thought of Lady in White. If you haven't seen Lady in White, tell me you're going to go find Lady in White. Love you guys.